Hey guys, Lytane here, and games can let you do incredible things, but do you know what they lack? The more mundane, like getting out of bed, going to work, doing chores, taking care of your kid, solving murders. But there is one game that lets you do all of these things and more. So today I'm going to be having a look at Heavy Rain and seeing if it's worth it. Heavy Rain was released in 2010 from the developer Quantic Dream, exclusively for the PlayStation 3. In this game, you play as 4 different characters: Ethan, Detective Shelby, Madison, and the FBI agent Norman Jayden, or should I say, Naaman. There is a killer on the loose calling themselves the Origami Killer that kidnaps small children during heavy storms and keeps them in a location that fills up with the stormwater, meaning that it is a race against time in order to find them before they drown. The killer is a little nice though, as they leave a series of clues and origami to guide one of the parents to see if they have what it takes to save their kid. What would you do to save someone you love? Sad to say, Ethan is the next victim when his son Shaun is kidnapped. Ethan needs to solve the puzzles to save his son. Madison is a reporter and is hot on the story, which of course gets her involved. Naaman is an FBI agent that is handling the case and trying to find the killer, as well as trying to keep his habits in check. And lastly, we have Shelby, who is a private detective hired by one of the old victims' families. They didn't think that the police could solve the case, so they seek his help, and he chases down leads in a very unconventional way. You will need the help of all of these people and probably the weatherman, so he can tell you how long the rain will remain heavy. Heavy Rain is a very different game in terms of presentation and gameplay, but let's start with the presentation. First off, the 4 main characters are so well designed and so beautiful in game. The graphics for these guys are just out of the world. It's just amazing. The level of detail that has gone into each one of these 4 main characters is so much, and whenever you go into one of the loading screens in between levels, it loads up the character that you'll be playing as next, and sometimes it's a face up one, sometimes it's the whole body, but when it's the face, you can see the level of details, like with the eyes flickering and moving and the face, how it moves, and it just sort of feels like an uncanny sort of realistic person. It's really well done. Aside from the 4 main characters, the rest of the game doesn't have that same kind of quality. The NPCs and the other characters that you meet are not nearly as detailed. They're a bit plain. The environments that you'll be going to are a bit plain. The rest of the game just has this plainish sort of feel to it. It's not bad, it's just not as good as those 4 main characters, and it's a real big striking difference between the 2 of them. And that is because this game was supposed to be more of a tech demo to show off the power of the PlayStation 3 before it became a full-fledged game, and you can sort of tell that this is the case at times because most of the effort went into the characters over the location. So essentially this game is more like a mystery movie than a game, and this is none more prevalent in how the game controls. First off, moving the analog stick does not move your character, it just changes their direction, and you have to hold the R2 button down for them to move forward. It's sort of like a car or tank controls, I guess, and it's a little odd at first and it takes a bit of getting used to. Then as you walk around, you can interact with many of the objects in the world using corresponding buttons or the movement of the right analog stick. As you can see, this entire game is built around the idea of quick time events. Pressing certain buttons at the right time to advance what the character is doing, and failing them can result in very many different outcomes. Some of them are funny. You aren't running and jumping or shooting like most other games in the world. You are following the button prompts on screen to watch your character do these actions. So most of the game you will be awkwardly walking around, bumping into people and bumping into things, because I know I did that quite a lot when I played through this because the controls are so awkward, in order to find something to interact with in order to advance the plot. Upon doing so, usually there's some kind of chase scene or action scene or something that's a little bit more intense afterwards. These are cut scenes that you have to do the button prompts to, and then failing them, all different effects can happen. But because of this movie-like feel and you just pressing buttons, it actually feels a lot more like a movie than a video game, and because of this, it's actually one of those games that is really easy to watch someone else play. But with such an awkward control scheme and all of the weird interactions and QTEs, which are people not a big fan of, I think the main draw of this game is the story. But the story isn't anything too original. It's not too amazing. It's a basic movie plot with the main character's son being kidnapped, and then he has to go through some tests in order to overcome it. We've seen it done before, we've seen it done plenty of times since. You know, Saw was probably the most famous one of this kind of idea to do it. So it's not even like that original, it's just how it's executed. This game's story is told in a compelling way, and the best part is that you are involved with the story and your choices actually matter. As you play, you'll be given plenty of choices, both in the dialogue scenes and the action scenes, where you can choose to do different things, like if you wanted to say something like, I forgive you, or I don't forgive you, which changes the rest of the story. Now, some choices have much bigger effects than others, but you won't know what they are on the first time you're playing through. Failing these events does have a consequence. Not all of the characters can make it to the end of the game, and if you play poorly or make the wrong choices, someone might die. Sometimes the game will be forgiving and let you get through the area, and sometimes it won't. So by the end of the game, you'll probably have had a different experience than what I had based on what you said and what you did. I don't want to spoil some of these events, as they are fantastic, and there are surprises which catch you off guard, even with simple things like, what outfit did your son have on when he went missing? And just so you know, I'm a really bad dad. Even though there's quite a few scripted scenes and places that you will go to every single time you play, the choices that you make in them will be different. Sometimes people will like you or hate you depending on choices that you've made earlier. Sometimes you'll even get to go to a new area, or sometimes you will be denied going to an area because of the choices that you've made. An example of this are the tests that Ethan has to do. You will go to each of these test locations throughout the game, but it's your choice to do them or not. You can go through these tests in order to try and figure out what the killer wanted you to understand, or you can be like, nah, I'm not doing that, that's stupid and crazy, and it's your choice, and based on those choices, you will have a much different outcome and a much different ending than what I did. Hell, you can choose to do 2 out of these 6 tests, or maybe you'll do all 6, or maybe you'll do none of them. Whatever you choose, it's your right to do so. This leads to so much replayability because you'll want to see what the other choices create. In my first playthrough, I decided to do all of the tests. I was like, I'm gonna save my son no matter what. And now that I've done it, when I go back and play it, I can choose to not do those and see what happens when I don't do these tests. And there's plenty of points throughout the game where there's different decisions that you can make, and so because of this, you'll want to see these different things, and the replayability is quite high. The game itself is only about 7 to 10 hours depending on choices that you make and what you do in the game, so for having a replayability is really good because that means it extends the game, because you probably want to play through it at least twice so you can see all the different things that this game has to offer, especially the multiple endings. I think there's like 12 of them off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure, but it's all based on who survives and who gets to the end. The soundtrack for this game is really good as well, but I have one song that I love in particular, Painful Memories. It's my absolute favorite song in this game. It is so sad and it makes you feel like you should be contemplating life, and so it suits the tone of the game so well. When I played through this game, I sat down in every seat in the game, some multiple times, and this song would be playing in the background a lot of the game. So my character, usually Ethan, would just sit down and contemplate his life and be lost in those painful memories, and it actually fit with the character and just the whole experience of the game. Also, when I played through this game, I was at a friend's house and he watched me play through the entire thing, and he was so annoyed that I kept doing this. In the final test of the game, there is also a seat in the room, so after all I went through with the tests and all the different stuff in the game and what the last test had wanted me to do, I just had to sit down and think and contemplate my life. It was just so perfect, and now I laugh at all those good memories, even though the song is far from a happy one. Lastly, there is also a port for this game for the PlayStation 4 with slightly updated graphics and lighting, so you do have 2 options for this game. In my opinion, I think that Heavy Rain is worth it. It is such an amazing game and such an amazing experience to go through. I don't use the word experience very often because I don't feel like it fits a lot of games, but here it is definitely the right word. Because of the movie-like feel and all the quick time events that you'll be doing, you don't feel like you're playing a game so much as that you're an experience experience of this game. With the multiple endings, the branching paths, the choices that you can make that really matter and change the outcomes of so many different scenes, it is really fun to play through. There are so many scripted events that are just really interesting, and the first times that they came up, for me, oh, some of them just blew me away, like the guy asking what my son was wearing, and I was like, oh crap, I have no idea, I'm such a bad dad. And that's just one of the first ones in the game. Later on, it gets more and more crazy, and it's just so well done. But there are some problems with the game. The controls are absolutely horrible. That walking control with the R2 and then like the tank controls is just really, really poor. Also, the fact that it's a game full of QuickTime events throws a lot of people off of it because they don't like those too much in video games anymore. It's just got a bad stigma about it. But if you can get over that, and if you just want to experience a very fun and unique story that does get a good resolution, by the way, even though there's multiple endings, you do find out who the killer is, and you can even put a stop to them depending on the choices that you make. The ending is satisfying most of the time, and because of the multiple endings, some of them are really, really stupid and funny, but I don't want to spoil them here. So just play through the game and experience it for yourself, and tell me what you got out of it, because I'm dying to know. So leave it in the comments below and tell me your experiences with Heavy Rain. Maybe you've played it, maybe you haven't. I would so highly suggest that you do, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! The choices that you make within them are what makes different. Can't speak English. An example of this are the tests that Ethan